changes quietly, through meetings behind closed doors, shifting alliances, and shared concerns that gradually turn into collective action. Today, the world is witnessing discussions that hint at a possible strategic realignment within the Islamic world. Conversations around a new form of collective security cooperation, sometimes described as a new Islamic NATO, involving Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, are raising important questions about geopolitics, economics, and regional stability. This is not about confrontation, it is about coordination in a rapidly changing global order. At the heart of this idea lies a shared strategic reality. Pakistan brings nuclear deterrence, a battle-tested military, and deep regional security experience. Saudi Arabia contributes immense economic weight, energy influence, and its central role in the Muslim world. Turkey adds advanced defense capabilities, growing technological independence, and a unique geopolitical position bridging East and West. Individually, these nations are influential. Together, they represent a powerful convergence of military strength, economic resources, and strategic geography. The global balance of power is shifting. Traditional alliances are under strain, and emerging economies are seeking greater strategic autonomy. In this environment, cooperation among Muslim-majority states is increasingly discussed not as an ideological project, but as a pragmatic response to security threats, economic uncertainty, and regional instability. The concept being explored is less about forming a rigid military bloc and more about structured collaboration, joint training, intelligence sharing, defense production, and coordinated diplomatic positions. Economic factors play a crucial role in this discussion. Defense cooperation today is deeply linked with industrial capacity and technological development. Joint ventures in defense manufacturing, shared research initiatives, and coordinated investments could reduce dependence on external suppliers. This kind of cooperation could also stimulate domestic industries, create skilled employment, and strengthen economic resilience across participating states. However, the implications go beyond security and economics. Such alignment could reshape diplomatic dynamics across the Middle East, South Asia, and beyond. It may encourage smaller states to seek balanced partnerships, while also signaling a desire for strategic self-reliance rather than dependency. At the same time, careful diplomacy would be essential to ensure that cooperation is seen as stabilizing rather than divisive. Critically, this vision faces challenges. Political differences, regional rivalries, and varying national priorities cannot be ignored. Trust-building, clear frameworks, and respect for sovereignty would be essential for any long-term success. Without these, cooperation risks remaining symbolic rather than transformative. Yet history shows that shared interests, when managed wisely, can overcome even deep differences. In the end, the idea of a new Islamic security framework involving Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey reflects a broader global trend. Nations reassessing their place in an uncertain world. Whether this vision becomes a formal alliance or remains a flexible partnership, it signals a search for collective strength, economic stability, and strategic dignity. The coming years will reveal whether these discussions evolve into a defining chapter of regional cooperation or remain a moment of reflection in an era of change. One thing is certain: the world is paying close attention. The discussion around a new cooperative security framework involving Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey reflects a deeper transformation underway in global politics, where emerging and middle powers are reassessing how they protect their interests in an increasingly uncertain international environment. For decades, security structures were dominated by a small number of powerful actors, leaving many states reliant on external guarantees. Today, shifting power balances, unpredictable policy changes by major powers, and evolving regional threats are pushing countries to explore alternatives that offer greater strategic autonomy. This evolving conversation is not sudden. It is the result of accumulated experiences, strategic lessons, and a growing awareness that dependence can be a vulnerability rather than a strength. What makes this development particularly noteworthy is that it is driven less by ideology and more by pragmatism. Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey each face distinct security challenges, yet they share a common concern: the need for reliable partnerships that are not subject to abrupt shifts in external priorities. This shared concern acts as a powerful hook, drawing attention to the idea that cooperation among these states is rooted in necessity rather than ambition. In an era where alliances are increasingly transactional, the search for dependable coordination becomes a strategic imperative. Another critical dimension is the gradual move toward strategic self-reliance. Rather than positioning themselves in opposition to existing global structures, these countries appear to be exploring ways to complement their foreign relationships while strengthening internal capabilities. This approach signals maturity in strategic thinking, where diversification of partnerships is seen as insurance against uncertainty. The concept suggests a framework flexible enough to adapt to regional realities, yet structured enough to provide meaningful cooperation. That balance is what gives the idea its strategic weight and keeps global observers attentive. The timing of these discussions also adds to their significance. The international system is undergoing a period of recalibration, marked by economic pressures, technological competition, and evolving security threats. In such an environment, states that fail to adapt risk being marginalized. This sense of urgency acts as another hook, underscoring why these conversations are gaining momentum now rather than later. It reflects an understanding that waiting for stability to return may no longer be a viable option. Importantly, this potential alignment also carries diplomatic implications. A coordinated approach among Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey could enhance their collective voice on international platforms, allowing them to articulate shared concerns with greater clarity and confidence. This does not necessarily imply confrontation. Rather, it points to a more balanced engagement where interests are negotiated from a position of collective strength. Such coordination can influence agendas, shape discussions, and encourage dialogue that reflects a wider range of perspectives. At the same time, the emphasis on cooperation highlights an evolving definition of security. Modern security is no longer limited to military considerations alone. It increasingly encompasses economic stability, technological resilience, and political continuity. By framing their cooperation within this broader understanding, these countries signal an awareness that long-term stability cannot be achieved through force alone. This multidimensional perspective adds depth to the discussion and reinforces its relevance in contemporary geopolitics. Yet, perhaps the most compelling hook lies in what this shift represents symbolically. It reflects a confidence among these states to take greater ownership of their strategic futures. Instead of reacting to global developments, they are positioning themselves as active participants in shaping outcomes. This transition from reactive to proactive strategy is subtle, but it carries profound implications for how power is exercised and perceived. Ultimately, the exploration of a cooperative security framework among Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey illustrates a broader trend in current affairs. The emergence of regional and cross-regional partnerships designed to navigate complexity rather than dominate it. It speaks to a world where influence is increasingly defined by adaptability, coordination, and strategic foresight, making this development a significant indicator of how global politics may continue to evolve. Military and defense collaboration sits at the center of discussions surrounding closer coordination between Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, but the nature of this cooperation is often misunderstood. Rather than signaling an aggressive posture, the focus appears to be on capability building, interoperability, and preparedness in a security environment that has become increasingly complex. Modern threats are no longer confined to conventional battlefields. They include asymmetric risks, cyber. Shift in the character of conflict acts as a powerful hook, explaining why defense cooperation today is as much about readiness and resilience as it is about deterrence. Each of the three countries brings a distinct, yet complementary strength to the table. Pakistan's military experience, shaped by decades of counterterrorism operations and regional security challenges, offers practical operational insights that few states possess. Turkey's rapidly advancing defense industry, marked by indigenous production and technological innovation, demonstrates how strategic investment can translate into autonomy. Saudi Arabia, with its expanding defense modernization efforts and financial capacity, provides the scale and resources necessary to support long-term collaboration. This convergence of experience, technology, and resources creates a foundation that is difficult to ignore in contemporary security planning. One of the most compelling aspects of this potential cooperation is the emphasis on joint training and interoperability. Modern military effectiveness depends not only on equipment, but on coordination, shared doctrine, and the ability to operate seamlessly across different environments. Joint exercises and professional exchanges can enhance mutual understanding while building trust at the institutional level. This practical dimension serves as another hook, highlighting that cooperation is rooted in tangible outcomes rather than symbolic gestures. Defense production and technology sharing further elevate the strategic significance of this alignment. Global supply chains have become increasingly politicized, exposing vulnerabilities for states that rely heavily on external suppliers. By exploring joint production, co-development projects, and shared research initiatives, these countries could reduce dependency while strengthening domestic industries. Such efforts also carry economic benefits, including skilled employment and technological spillover into civilian sectors. This blend of security and economic gain reinforces the appeal of deeper defense collaboration. Intelligence coordination represents another critical layer of this discussion. In an era defined by rapid information flows and transnational threats, timely and accurate intelligence is often the decisive factor in preventing crises. Structured intelligence sharing mechanisms can enhance situational awareness and enable more effective responses to emerging risks. The hook here lies in prevention rather than reaction, underscoring a strategic shift toward anticipating challenges before they escalate. At the same time, the political signaling associated with defense cooperation cannot be overlooked. Closer military ties among Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey send a message of confidence and cohesion without necessarily provoking confrontation. It suggests a willingness to shoulder greater responsibility for regional stability while maintaining diplomatic balance. This nuanced signaling is particularly relevant in a multipolar world where perception often shapes reality. Crucially, such collaboration would require careful calibration to respect sovereignty and differing strategic priorities. Effective frameworks would need to emphasize consensus, transparency, and flexibility to accommodate national interests. This complexity adds depth to the discussion and serves as a final hook, reminding observers that meaningful defense cooperation is as much about governance and trust as it is about hardware and strategy. Through this lens, military and defense collaboration among these states emerges not as a rigid alliance, but as an adaptive network designed to enhance capability, reduce vulnerability, and navigate uncertainty with greater confidence. Economic considerations form a critical backbone of the emerging coordination among Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey, revealing that the discussion extends far beyond traditional security thinking. In the modern geopolitical environment, economic strength is inseparable from strategic influence, and this reality acts as a compelling hook for why closer alignment is being explored. Defense cooperation, in particular, has evolved into a catalyst for industrial growth, technological advancement, and long-term resilience. The ability to produce, sustain, and innovate domestically is increasingly viewed as a measure of national power, not merely an economic advantage. One of the most significant economic dimensions lies in reducing external dependency. Global markets have become more volatile, and access to critical technologies and equipment is often shaped by political considerations. For countries seeking greater strategic autonomy, reliance on a limited number of suppliers creates exposure to sudden disruptions. By coordinating investment and production capabilities, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey could gradually build a more self-sufficient ecosystem. This approach is not about isolation, but about balance, ensuring that economic and strategic decisions are not constrained by external pressures. Defense-related industrial cooperation also carries broader economic implications. Joint ventures in manufacturing, maintenance, and research can stimulate domestic industries and create high-skilled employment. Turkey's experience in developing indigenous defense technologies, Pakistan's growing industrial base, and Saudi Arabia's capacity for large-scale investment together form a complementary economic equation. This convergence offers a hook rooted in opportunity, the possibility of transforming security spending into a driver of sustainable economic development rather than a financial burden. Beyond defense, closer coordination could encourage expanded trade and investment flows. Economic alignment often follows strategic trust, and structured cooperation can reduce barriers to commerce. Enhanced trade links, particularly in energy, infrastructure, and technology, could strengthen economic stability across all three countries. Saudi Arabia India's role as a major energy producer, combined with Pakistan's strategic transit potential and Turkey's manufacturing and logistics capabilities, presents a framework for mutually beneficial economic integration. Another important factor is resilience against economic shocks. The global economy has faced repeated disruptions in recent years, highlighting the vulnerability of states that lack diversified partnerships. By strengthening economic ties, these countries could create informal support mechanisms that mitigate the impact of external crises. This sense of collective resilience acts as a powerful hook, emphasizing preparedness rather than reaction in economic planning. The role of technology and innovation further deepens the economic narrative. Modern economies increasingly depend on advanced technologies that blur the line between civilian and defense applications. Collaborative research and development initiatives could accelerate innovation while sharing costs and risks. This not only enhances competitiveness, but also fosters knowledge transfer and human capital development. In this context, economic cooperation becomes an investment in future capacity rather than a short-term calculation. Importantly, this economic dimension also carries strategic signaling value. Coordinated economic initiatives demonstrate confidence in long-term intent, signaling to global markets that these countries are committed to stability and growth. Such signals can attract external investment and enhance credibility on the international stage. The hook here lies in perception. As economic confidence often shapes political influence. At the same time, effective economic coordination would require careful governance, transparency, and alignment of regulatory frameworks. Differences in economic structure and policy priorities must be managed to avoid friction. This complexity adds realism to the discussion, underscoring that economic cooperation is not automatic, but requires sustained commitment and strategic vision. Taken together, the economic considerations surrounding this emerging alignment illustrate how security, industry, and growth